2021 was a very weird year. I mean, it wasn't entirely bad, but it wasn't entirely good either. But movie theaters started opening up, and with that, movies started coming out. Some were great, some were good, and some were... no. But I'm not going to talk about the films that were bad. Instead, I'm going to talk about the films I really enjoyed. I would do the normal top 10, but in fact, there were a lot of movies here that I really liked. So instead of a top 10, I'm going to do a top 15. So, sit back and relax and enjoy EquesTron's top 15 movies of 2021. Number 15. Malignant. This is one of those movies that has to be seen to be believed. Though it starts off as a very typical supernatural horror movie, the third act takes a pretty massive turn. But even before that is a very entertaining horror movie. While some have downgraded it for its cheesy acting, not so great scripting, and of course the third act twist which goes completely off the rails, I personally think that's one of the things that makes it a really great movie. Director James Wan not only knocks it out of the park with the pacing and the energy, but also with the choreography of some of the more crazier sequences. You'll know it when you see it. This is a perfectly fun B-movie that I would gladly show on Halloween. So if you like movies that are cheesy but also willing to go completely bonkers, I highly recommend Malignant. Number 14. The Tomorrow War. Starring Chris Pratt as a soldier who gets sent to the future to fight an alien menace, The Tomorrow War was one of those films that were a victim of the pandemic. It was supposed to come out in theaters, but with certain things that prevented it from doing so, it instead showed up on Amazon. But even with that said, this was an amazing time. It harkened back to those gigantic summer epics like Independence Day, or even smaller films like Battle Los Angeles, which I personally really like. But underneath all the big bombastic explosions is an emotional core about a dad's relationship with his daughter, and I feel it complements the big action really well. While The Tomorrow War is definitely not one of the more well-received movies that are on this list, this is a film that had me grinning from start to finish. It's nearly 2 hours and 20 minutes of big summer fun that I would highly recommend for anyone who loves this kind of genre. It's definitely not a smart movie, but it's one that I absolutely love. Number 13. Dune. Part 1. I'll be honest, if there wasn't a part 2 coming, this movie probably wouldn't have made my top 15. That doesn't mean that, the film would have sucked without a part 2. Actually, I probably would have said that. But despite all that, this is a great movie. Based off of Frank Herbert's massive epic, Dune does a really good job in showcasing the story in a way that doesn't feel confusing. And despite being only one half of a story, the film does manage to be engaging throughout. The acting is really good, and while the set pieces are minimal, they are genuinely thrilling. But what makes Dune stand out are its visuals, and my god, Dune is a visual masterpiece. Even people who don't like the movie can agree that the visuals are absolutely stunning. And while I can knock the film for having a cliffhanger and being only one half of a story, knowing that there is a part 2 coming makes me more than happy to put this on the top 15. Number 12. My Hero Academia World Heroes Mission. Anyone who knows me knows that I absolutely loved the second My Hero Academia movie, Heroes Rising. So the third movie had a lot to live up to. But while the third movie doesn't quite reach the same heights, it is still a very entertaining film in its own right. The characters are still fun to watch, the action is still amazing, and it still has that massive heart that My Hero Academia is known for. Even if you argue that this is a very unnecessary film, it still feels like it was made with the same love and passion that you would expect from the series. Honestly, my only real complaint is that it wastes one of its best villains halfway through the film. And if anyone follows me on Twitter and what I particularly like, you'll know which villain it is. But besides that, I had a blast watching this in theaters, and I hope to see more My Hero Academia films in the future. Maybe we'll focus on some of the other characters. How about a Froppy movie? How about a Mirko movie? Fingers crossed. Number 11. SpiderMan No Way Home. I know what you're thinking. What could possibly be better than SpiderMan No Way Home? Well, the 10 other movies that I'm about to list. But even though it doesn't crack the top 10, Spider-Man No Way Home is a really good movie. Tom Holland is at the top of his game here as Spider-Man, and I think the story is genuinely compelling and very engaging. And there were definitely moments here that I felt emotional and started crying at some points. But even then, I still had my problems. I thought the characterization for some of the returning cast members to be mixed at best. Some of them were really good and consistent, like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin and Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, but then others felt weird, like Dr. Connors from Amazing Spider-Man or Electro from Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I couldn't tell it was because of the certain formula that the MCU is known for, or because the writers generally don't like those movies. Heck, it could be both. But, to be fair, there is a character from The Amazing Spider-Man that shows up here that is absolutely the best part about this movie. You probably know what I'm talking about if you've seen it. I know that I'm being incredibly spoiler free, even though there's spoilers out in the wilds, and I'm pretty sure everyone has seen the movie already. Probably twice. Actually, you know what, forget it. Andrew Garfield was the best part about this movie. So even though I felt the villains weren't very consistent with one another from film to film, Spider-Man No Way Home as a whole is a really good ending to the Tom Holland trilogy, and probably the beginning of a brand new one. And though it really must be said, make Amazing Spider-Man 3 already. Number 10. ShangChi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This was a film that snuck up on me. The trailers weren't super engaging and the early word just made me roll my eyes, but the film really caught me off guard. This is due to things like fun performances, fairly good visuals, and a surprisingly sympathetic villain. But the fights are truly great in this film. Primarily in the first half, such as a bus fight and a building fight, those put me on the edge of my seat throughout. And while the second half is a bit more CGI overload, it never fully took me out of the movie. Usually I don't mind with big CGI set pieces, but I did prefer the more personal fights. But I feel the emotional and family dynamic of the film really saved that second half. So even though some may disagree, I would definitely rank this one higher than Spider-Man No Way Home. Also, ShangChi has Awkwafina in it, and I like Awkwafina, so there you go. Number 9. No Time to Die. Now this is kind of a controversial pick, as people don't seem to like this movie. On some level, I could see where they're coming from. For one, this movie is almost 2 hours and 45 minutes. And for another, it goes back and forth between feeling like a James Bond movie and not feeling like a James Bond movie. And of course, the big point of contention is the ending. It's kind of the moment that really divided a lot of audiences, and I could see why. It's a bold and even brave move to do, especially for a franchise picture. And even I can agree that it could have been done better. But I do think as a whole, No Time to Die, it just clicks with me. This is one of Daniel Craig's best Bond movies. Because even though I am kind of a Spectre defender, there were times where he did seem very out of it. But here, he was completely in it. I did like the villain even though he wasn't in it all that much, and Hans Zimmer's score is just brilliant. Hearing the James Bond theme in his style was just, well, music to my ears. So while I can see people's problems with this one, I personally wasn't bothered all that much, and had a great time watching it. I don't know who's going to play 007 next, but I think this was a really good ending to the Daniel Craig era. Number 8. Army of the Dead. Yeah, you thought No Time to Die was going to be controversial? There's this movie. This was a movie I was genuinely anticipating. For one, it's a zombie movie, and two, it's a Zack Snyder movie, and you all know how I feel about Zack Snyder. And when I first saw it in the theater, it was everything I could have wanted. It was big, it was loud, but it also never lost a sense of fun. And kind of like the Tomorrow War, I was surprised that it had a bit of a family element to it. Not a family movie element, but it has an emotional undercurrent about a relationship between a father and daughter. It's just like the Tomorrow War! Actually, no, it's not. So I was actually surprised to know that people hate this movie. And reading some of the criticisms, I could kind of see why. The movie's almost 2.5 hours, and there's a lot of weird elements that kind of hint at a bigger universe, when really it should just be about a heist movie with zombies. Also, some people tend to blame a character for certain actions that happened, but I personally don't agree with that certain assessment. But for the other stuff, I didn't mind the movie was almost 2.5 hours long. It actually flew by for me. I also thought the world building was really good, and I do anticipate the much bigger stuff that's going on. We had a prequel later on, Army of Thieves, which was a really good movie, and I'm very much looking forward to the animated series. Now, it is possible that my love for Zack Snyder movies kind of diminished some of the flaws, but I've seen this movie quite a few times, and I'll tell you the truth, I still have a blast watching it. Is it perfect? No, but I love it all the same. Number 7. Ghostbusters Afterlife. A lot of people have criticized this movie for being a nostalgia fest, and honestly, after what we got in 2016, I was more than happy with it. The film definitely feels like the kind of movie I would have wanted. A legacy film that sort of works as a passing of the torch. The kids are exceptionally charming, especially McKenna Grace as Phoebe, and the film has a massive amount of heart and emotion to it. And like I said, some have criticized the film for having a lot of references and in-jokes to the previous films, but honestly, I wasn't bothered. Instead, I smiled. I mean, there was that who you gonna call joke that was a little bit cringy, but I think the rest is really good. And of course the last 30 minutes are sort of like the last 30 minutes of the original Ghostbusters. But I felt that since the film was so good in getting there, retreading familiar ground didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. Unlike the 2016 movie, this is a film I would gladly watch a sequel to. And even if it doesn't get one, this is still a film I'd be glad to watch over and over again. Number 6. Demon Slayer, Mugen Train. Is it Mugen Train? Or Mugen Train? Mugen Train. I don't know. Yes, the film based on the global phenomenon known as Demon Slayer is one of my top 10 favorite movies. I personally didn't know what to expect from this film. Even though I'm a massive fan of Demon Slayer, I didn't know how this one particular section of the story would work as a feature. Surprisingly, it works brilliantly. The characters are still great, the action is still great, the animation is just out of this world. And like My Hero Academia, there's a big heart to it. Even when it goes into silliness or it goes into camp, it believes in itself, and I think that's why I love films like this. Sincerity is such a big thing for me, and Demon Slayer is sincere. And so watching the series and of course the movie, I felt everything that it wanted me to feel. It's action-packed, it's funny, it's emotional, it's dramatic. It was well worth seeing on the big screen. Now, am I disappointed that the film was eventually split up into 4 episodes that were extended? A little bit, but that doesn't take away from how good the film is. It is a definite watch for Demon Slayer fans. And if you haven't seen Demon Slayer, watch Demon Slayer and then watch the movie. I think you'll have a great time. Number 5. The Mitchells vs. the Machines. This is another film that was originally supposed to come out in theaters, but under a different title of Connected. After it was moved to Netflix, it was given back its original title of Mitchells vs. the Machines. But that backstory aside, I just need to tell you that you need to watch this movie. It is a dazzling animated comedy that I couldn't get enough of. The animation is vibrant and energetic, the comedy made me cry laughing, and underneath it all is a moving family story about growing up. I really could go on and on about how great this movie is, but I'm gonna sell this one short and just tell you to watch it. It's on Blu-ray, it's on Netflix, check it out. I beg of you to check this one out. It is great and is very much worthy of being in this spot. Number 4. Hilda and the Mountain King. I mean, come on, you've seen my video of Hilda, you know that this film would probably end up on the list somehow. I was waiting a long time for this movie, and honestly, it's worth the wait. It comes right off the heels of Season 2's ending, and continues beautifully from there. It really feels like the series didn't miss a beat, moving from episodes to films. The characters are still great, the writing is still as charming as ever, and it does go into darker territory, much like how Season 2 did. Now honestly, if you haven't seen Hilda, this entry probably wouldn't do much for you. That's why, like Demon Slayer, I implore you to watch this show. It is an amazing show, filled with great characters, great animation, and the movie is pretty much the same. So what are you waiting for? Check it out. Number 3. Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time. Yeah, that is a title. The 4th and final film in the Evangelion Rebuild series is a dazzling good time. Even after the controversial 3rd movie, the 4th film really does make up for that film's shortcomings. It is an over 2.5 hour goodbye to the franchise. And even though the director has said many times that he's done with it and that he doesn't care for it anymore, there was so much love and attention brought to this final chapter. It says goodbye to its characters in a way that feels respectful and closes off their arcs beautifully. And most importantly, it gives its characters what they've always deserved, a happy ending. Yeah, I'm sort of spoiling it, but it is honestly the most upbeat Evangelion has ever been, except for maybe its first 10 episodes. This is everything I've ever could have wanted, and it's a remarkable farewell tour. Number 2. Zack Snyder's Justice League. I know, you're shocked. Zack Snyder's Justice League is only number 2? What could possibly be number 1? But, let me explain. I'm sure some of you know the backstory of Zack Snyder's Justice League. The film in 2017 was definitely not the film that was supposed to be released. And so, thanks to a campaign that some would consider toxic but some would consider passionate, we eventually got the true director's cut of Justice League, with an additional ending that was shot earlier last year. At 4 hours, this is the definition of an epic. This feels like a Zack Snyder movie. This is a Zack Snyder movie. It's so much of a Zack Snyder movie that Zack Snyder's name is now in the title. It continues off of Batman v Superman and Man of Steel wonderfully, finally making the 3 films a consistent trilogy. The acting is stronger, the action is punchier, the music, oh my god, the music is absolutely breathtaking. This is truly the film we should have gotten back in 2017. Now, despite all that, did it need to be 4 hours? Probably not. I think you could trim this down to a 3-hour movie easily. But this is pure, unadulterated, unmolested Zack Snyder. And considering how much I love Zack Snyder, this was one of the best movies I've seen this year. And it would have been the best movie I've seen this year if it wasn't for the last entry. Number 1. Violet Evergarden, the movie. Again, much like Demon Slayer, much like Hilda, Violet Evergarden the movie is the kind of film that needs to have its prior iterations watched before this. This is a finale to a story that began years ago. The series Violet Evergarden is one of the most emotional series I've ever seen. And so the movie did have a lot to live up to. And as you can see, because it's the number 1 spot, it lived up to all of my expectations. It's one of the most emotionally draining films I've seen in quite some time. And I mean that in the best possible way. It never felt manipulative, it felt genuine. Like it came from a good place. It was so great to see these characters one last time. And like Evangelion, gives its main character everything that she deserves. The film is nearly 2.5 hours and has almost no action, but I was engaged all the same. It was compelling, it was a little bit funny sometimes, but it was also weirdly romantic in a sense. I mean, it is a love story through and through, but even I was surprised about how sweet it was and how it earned every moment. It's not only the best film I've seen this year, it's not only the best animated film I've seen this year, but it's one of the best films I've ever seen, period. It is truly a stellar film. It is a flawless film, and one that I hope everybody sees, as long as you see the series prior. I think if you watch it on its own, I think you might still get something out of it, but if you watch the series and then the movies, you'll get a lot more. So that was my top 15 films of 2021. Did you agree with it? Did you disagree with it? Or were you just happy that I was talking? Sorry if my voice seemed kind of off, but I'm still recovering from an illness, but I'm getting better, so don't have to worry about that. So thank you all for watching. I hope you had a good time. You all stay safe, you all stay healthy, and you all stay wonderful.